Hello, friends. Welcome back to Value Vintage Cards. I wanted to just kind of navigate through my mindset. I think one of the topics that's been brought up recently that I think is maybe some of the feelings or the communication or vocabulary of our hobby is we label ourselves and we call ourselves collectors or investors or flippers or dealers or uh, hoarders. I'm not sure where I classify myself. I call myself a player collector. I called my channel Value Vintage for the intention of saying kind of look for uh, build purpose. It kind of says like I value vintage, which is really kind of I always look for like dual meaning in things. And then also just I look for value in vintage. Um, but I will say when I pick up an item, I'm rarely having the investment flip mindset. I try to obviously pay fair, or sometimes the way I collect, I end up paying over, um, not by intention or um, design. It's just simply it's so rare that when it comes up, my collector heart comes out, and I want to make sure that I acquire that. And I have no intention of releasing it, so I'm gonna make the ridiculous assumption that in 20, 30, hopefully 50 years, when kids need to move on from it, hopefully that the next collectors seeing something greater than what I um, acquired it for. But that all said, I was thinking, even within the, not to, this is in no way, shape, or form going to be a hot topic video. I really wanted to navigate through how my collecting mindset, maybe as I'm preparing for a video, preparing for what I want to share, how my player collecting heart comes in. Um, and then I also I always have the mindset of the pre-war pusher mode, because I find myself riding the line between kind of almost like the classic vintage. I think it's the gateway vintage. It's the 50s and 60s. Obviously, some players that maybe our parents saw or some of us saw playing maybe tail end of the career, maybe prime of their career, depending on who we are and what our life experience is. So going through that, I'm going to share some of those, and then I'm going to also share a little bit of pre-war stuff, because I do feel like I kind of navigate there on many of my collecting journeys, and I'm going to show how easy it is to kind of get there. So through the lens of me being a player collector, so I'm going to share 3 players today. In brief, 5 to 6, 7 pieces of each one. Nothing crazy. And what's really interesting is all of it is what I would call oversized, and all of it is what is, interestingly enough, ungraded. So yeah, let's flip it around and take a look and see what y'all think. All right, friends, I'm going to start this little journey off here with a Hank Aaron. This is a 1961 Manny's Land. Some of these, one of the reasons I'm pulling these is I need to label some of these. A few of them, it just has like the simple little name at the bottom, but some of these I need to figure out what they are. Some of these issues that are crazy rare, and I want to label them on the back, because the ungraded version, that's one of the few downsides to having it ungraded, is I don't have a label on it. So as far as I know, there's no custom slabbing for things like this. Next one I want to show y'all is super cool. I actually had to reach out to Matt at the card store. If you're buying Hank Aaron's and Warren Spahns and Eddie Matthews and you're not reaching out to Matt, especially, I mean, obviously it's like 64 tops, it's 64 tops, but being into stuff like this, you're like, what is this? How hard is this to actually find? And you could be a amazing resource and guide. And he's one of my good friends in the hobby, so really appreciate Matt and his wisdom. The Winning Look, so Pleasure Wear by Van Heusen. This is a promotional piece issued. I thought the image for Henry Aaron was just insanely cool. Finding this pretty tough. Times there's 2 or 3 out there, but sometimes I always feel like when it's super rare, a lot of times there's one of them out there, but it's priced at if anyone ever pays this, they deserve to buy it kind of price. Um, you know, 2, 3 times what might be reasonable. And this one was ungraded, so you always had the speculation of, I think, authenticity. I didn't really necessarily question. It was a solid seller, and images were good. I didn't really worry that it wasn't going to be real, but I did want to make sure that it was, fair for what they were asking. I think I did well on it. Next up, I've been showing some of these premiums, and this is a little teeny tiny premium. It's more like index card size instead of being, magazine page size, but also very cool. I think another fantastic image. One of the good things about collecting Hank Aaron is you get some really cool images out of these, but it's another one of the advisory series. So I actually had to look when I received this because I'm so used to all the advisory series things being like, 8 by 10 ish. When I received it, I was like, is this is this thing cool? Um, and I looked at other ones that were graded and evaluated, and this is what that issue was. So kind of an interesting little small thing, and somebody wrote on the back of this, so it was also interesting for that. But another great, great Henry Aaron image. Next two are J Publishing, which I think I have shared this somewhat recently, so I'm not going to linger too long, but the image on the right, I think, is used at least a couple other times. It's a fantastic image, very youthful. I think that's one of his first mass distributed images. The other ones, I feel like just any of these, the other one's a really good compliment to McGregor. It's almost like, Hank, just look not at the camera. It's like, okay, I'll just look a little off center. So I got into the J Publishing, and this is where my mind goes, player, collector, whatever else. Got through some of my Hanks, and I was like, I've got some other really cool J Publishing, and I actually had semi-forgotten that this was in the huge pickup that I made. So I got into my Stan Musial stuff, and Stan is, Hank's growing on me in terms of, pursuit and looking things up. I've got a decent Hank Aaron run, but Stan is definitely one that's been a focus for some years now. And I think I've got some cool pieces of his. But the J Publishing sometimes is tough to find, and so snagging that one was a good addition to the collection. And it just kind of got me thinking of all the different cool things you can find with Stan. And so you get things like this. If you're really a deep dive collector on some of these, compliments of Stan Musial and Biggie's restaurant. I've actually had a T-shirt that says, Stan Musial and Biggie. I think maybe it's a steakhouse T-shirt, but I wear that often. Obviously, I had to seek that out as well. But I think it's neat to have some of these less, distributed type items. I mean, that was given out at his restaurant, and as you pursue, you can actually find quite a few things like that. How awesome is that? So again, I think Musial with a glove is always a good look, but getting something from the restaurant again, and these aren't big item, big dollar things. If you're a Musial collector, I'm releasing this as knowledge to go look for because I think I have everything. So I'm how's that for greedy and selfish? I think I have everything I need from his restaurant release. So now that I've done my work, I'll let you all in on the secret that it's awesome. So this is the other one. It's the big version of the small version. Probably should have shown those together, but super cool, right? So if you do find this online, make sure is it a whatever that is, maybe 4x6, or is it the full 8x10? Both awesome. Kind of depends how you collect and what you might want to add to your collection. And then I will go back to something like that. More the traditional, like 8x10. This is what I'm kind of used to. So that Hank Aaron still throws me off a little bit. But the Stan Musial member advisory staff Rawlings, there's 3 of them, I believe. There's one that is currently lost in the mail. which is soul crushing, but it's the easiest of the three to find. This one's actually pretty tough to find. So this is a like with glove, I think is the way it's described, but see the glove just on the ground. The other one, there's one of him, um, not recalling the picture perfectly, but I think it's uh, showing, with bat kind of thing. And I think this one he's doing is like Ted Klaczewski impersonation. He's trying to, show off the gun show, but just great image. Stan looking straight at the camera, big smile, just fantastic. And then other one, again with glove, another one that's a little bit tougher to find. So with three, fortunately, the one I'm missing, possibly missing, we'll see what happens, um, is the easiest to find. So I can search that out in the next months or years and acquire that without too much challenge. These two are kind of tough. You're not always going to find five available on eBay at any given moment. And they're usually a cheap enough item that you don't see them go through the big auction houses. So you're kind of caught in that like little wedge of it's low cost, but also somewhat tough to find. So I got to track it down. And that really, I wasn't intending to ever really discuss that, but I feel like that's really kind of my niche. It's not so much that this has to be, a $4,000 Stan Musial. It can be a $50, $100, $28, doesn't matter. What makes it cool is that it's tough to find. It's the journey and the trek to get it. Um, the experience of having to track this thing down and find it and find the right deal in the right condition and all the different things. That's what makes collecting fun and exciting and interesting. So this one, again, advisory staff. I think the image is just fantastic. Again, love, big old smile. It's really tough with my setup right now. I can't really zoom in on the whole thing because I am confined by space. The last Musial piece I want to share is something I think I've shared this once, maybe. But I've shown the Rawlings cards. When this thing popped up, you can buy the 6 cards, which I've been fortunate to have all 6 in my collection now. You can buy the cards individually. You can buy an entire box, which is its own level of crazy, right? The box itself is big bucks. That becomes really tough because you get all 6 cards, you get the full, original setup. This is part of it. So this is another portion of the box that I just thought was phenomenal. Absolutely love that. The colors, the images, all of it. And this was like a quarter of the price of the cheapest card I have, I think. So to me, that was a steal. I'm sure it's ungradable, which makes that unattractive to a certain type of collector. But for me, anything, everything Musial is awesome. So let me go ahead and snag this thing and put it away. I'll probably never buy the entire box. And I'd have to have a whole bunch of money that I just have no idea what to do with it. So I might buy it at some point, but I don't know if that will ever happen in life. So it's kind of where I land. And then let's go back. Friend Scott has been just crushing education on these. And so I think these are gaining traction and appreciation and attention in the hobby, at least in the community. Let me say that. And the influence within the hobby doesn't take a whole lot to move the needle. Some of these are fairly plentiful. Some of these are pretty gosh darn tough. But these exhibits, you can get anywhere from issues in the 20s and 30s up to the 60s. So there's plenty of different things that are called exhibits. This would be your classic late 40s to early 60s. Stan played that entire run, so it would make sense that maybe he'd have a pretty plentiful distribution, blank back items. But super neat, great image, very youthful kind of image, which would make sense if they were producing them over the whole span. Some players have more than one issue. But there's other things that are called exhibits. Where President John Mangini, my friend, um, I always laugh. My collection is the Wish Mangini collection. Not that he wishes that. It's just when you see something that almost feels like the slightly less impressive variation, it's the Wish version, right? So that's kind of, I think if you were to say, how do you collect? I could probably just, instead of saying player collector, pre-war pusher, any of those things, I just say, yeah, knock off Mangini collection. And I'd be impressed if you accepted that explanation. But this one gets into another exhibit. He just shared one of these, which is why my mind went to Mr. John. So 1961, these are like a Wrigley Field exhibit. Neat issues. They are, let me think, are they all retired players? I know there's like Babe Ruth. I've got a Walter Johnson. I think I have the Eddie Collins too. Picked up a few players that kind of made sense with my collection. Those are all obviously retired players by 1961. But they do a couple things. One is they're kind of small regional. They look like ready to send postcards. I don't think I've seen any that are like filled in or sent. I believe they were stadium distribution, and potentially, I haven't researched them enough, they may be just a 1 year issue. But what I think is cool, the images are fantastic. The price point is generally very friendly, and I love the uniqueness of having things like Aloysius Harry Simmons. That's, I share this every time I show Al Simmons, but that's my dad's real first name. My mom was wise enough and kind enough not to make me the third. He's a junior, so, so I'm not an Aloysius. That's the reason I can pronounce that name correctly. Yeah, Al Simmons, and even better, because you definitely have choices with Al Simmons. It shows him in a White Sox uniform, so that's another reason that I will sometimes jump at those. Um, and I think because of all those reasons I just kind of sideways mentioned, I do collect Al Simmons. So you get some of these. That's a wide pen. I just shared that one recently. That's a recent pickup. It's another one that's dozens of dollars. It's not even dozens. It's more than a dozen, but not dozens. Like, that's how affordable that is. These next two are dozens. Yeah, depending on condition, they can get a little bit tougher. That's a Cashin, 1929 Cashin. Pretty awesome, fantastic image. Blank backs, as they should be. Super cool. And then the old R315 Al Simmons. These are notorious for ridiculous, crazy print lines on them. I think this one has it too. Kind of going through just left of his bat there. Always point that out because to me, that's almost a reassurance that it's probably not replica. It's probably an original. But when you buy them ungraded, you've got to make sure you're buying from reputable sellers that know what they're looking at, and it's not going to be a reproduction. But I would say this thing is 99.99% legit, so I'm good. But neat, right? And they call him Al Simmons there. The last Al Simmons I'm going to show you is this beast. Absolutely love this. So these are 1939 issues. There's a Canadian version as well. All right, so this is an R303. I believe there's A, B, there's sepia or black and white variations. But what makes these really neat is the back. They have different instructions, how-tos, how to lay out a field, how to umpire, how to base run, how to hit, how to throw a certain pitch. Just really, really neat variations. Fantastic images. That's like an 8x10 top loader. So perspective-wise, I probably can get away with a slightly smaller top loader, but I like to give it a little bit of room and make sure it's safe and secure. So this one, I think, is fantastic. I absolutely love that set, which gets my mind going in a different direction. So the last couple I'm going to show you are same set, different players. And I think I've actually shown this one before, but at times the way I collect, kind of going through the whole journey and evolution of things, at times what I will collect will just be an amazing set. This set is oversized, it's pre-war, it's everything I love, it's affordable, fantastic value, so you can buy anything in that set as long as you're not paying ridiculously outside a fare for that particular item. You're going to do really well. Joe Gordon, I think this is classified as at least one of his rookies. 1939, it's got some markings on the back, but how to cover a base. There is a Canadian issue, which is even more scarce, and the easiest way to distinguish the Canadian issue will not have the border around it. Everything about it looks the same. I believe some of these issues, when you go Canadian, maybe the Butterfingers, I think, are a slightly different size, just ever so barely. So if you don't have something to compare it to, a reference, you might not be able to tell. These, I believe they're the same size. If I'm wrong, I'll follow up on another video. Either way, I'm going to feature this set, but I think it's just such a neat set. And the last one, another player that I collect. So you can kind of see that this could go on all day. If I had unlimited hobby time, I would then run into Bill Dickey and say, but I also have a lot of Bill Dickeys. And then I get into that, and then I probably, either see a card where he's on it with, Gehrig, or I say he was the mentor to Yogi Berra, and you go down the rabbit hole again. So that's kind of my fun, my journey, my experience, my mindset, and just, hopefully a few things that are neat and fun and interesting. This one's obviously got some staining to it. A lot of these were, which I think is almost cool. It's beyond pinhole. It's not like a, oops, there's a pinhole. I mean, these things, like somebody retacked it 6 times in their room. You see that a lot on these. So big old, goober stain, a whole bunch of holes. You can still read all of it. Picture is still fun. Made it super affordable, and helps to tell the story of, what the item is. So, and makes my collection grow that much further. So I enjoy that kind of stuff. But that is the end of whatever this crazy video topic will be. But a little bit of player sharing, a little bit of collecting philosophy, a little bit of just looking at some fun stuff, and what it's like to dive in as a player collector / vintage collector / pre-war pusher / mild investor / definitely hardcore collector and appreciator of history and actual baseball players' stories. So that's me. I will catch you all on the next video. Take care.